Part of there's a handful of us, Mary, Roscoe, and Jim Best have been just really the word stout is coming into my head and I'm not seeing how it fits, but they've been really they've been really
sounds very Minnesota.
It's staunch. Maybe staunch is the word I was looking for, or stalwart. But anyway, supporters of this this effort to really figure out how to operationalize the ongoing use of a social system map to actually help create self-organizing. And so I've done many dozens of these maps, dozens and dozens over the last, since we created SumApp. And what I see is there's an initial bunch of energy and it's exciting. And then people don't know how to keep it up to date. They don't know how to they don't have a good process for adding more questions that are meaningful and helpful to increasing self-organizing within their networks. And so this is an exploration that we've been trying to have in our network. And as I said in my email, it's not easy. It requires us to think differently from a lot of different angles and create different habits, and to approach things that we think of as grunt work from a very different perspective, understanding them as opportunities. And so we've been doing this and for a while, and it has been gritty. And but we're at a point now where we've gone through sort of some updates to the map, or to the SumApp questions, and now we want to actually start to think about how to actually use it. So that's what we're doing today. And as I said in my email, it's both for the literal real purpose of us developing our community of practice, making it more, I would say, increasing generative exchanges across all of our participants, as well as generating more micro collaborations, which we all know from our network theory that micro collaborations are sort of the true glue of a network, and the true place where we practice co-creating and collaborating. So both for the actual literal purpose of strengthening our network, so it's real, but at the same time, it's also an example, because it's hard to practice this without a full map with real people who have real relationships and real needs and desires and things they do want to do and can't stand to do, and traumas and all that kind of fun stuff. So it's also an opportunity for us to practice together, to take to other contexts. So while we're doing this, we're both doing it for real in our context. But if you have another network that you are working on and trying to enhance its self-organizing, then the assumption is that you're going to be thinking about it at those two levels, both literally here and now, and also what can I take away from this? How could I use this in my own community? What obviously would need to change, but what's like a good fundamental concept, but how would I apply it in my context? So those are both going on. The conversation today will be mostly focused on our actual context, so we can actually build real muscles and not just theorize. But so that's the point. And I'm going to jump in and invite you to, if you haven't already, there's this diagram in the middle of the mirror board with the big stuff moving around with the white background. This is an idea of, this is me, this is, in Mary and Jim and I's conversations over the last many months, we're trying to understand, as we're trying to understand, where is this going? What are we trying to do? What's the point? How might this work? How might that work? That has just sort of forced me to sort of take things that have been in my mind as how this might fit together, or, what might lead to what, and what do we need here? So this is a draft. This is just a sort of it's not like a workflow. It's not a causal loop diagram. And the things that I think are most important are just the activities that we're looking for, as opposed to what's like the arrows aren't, I wouldn't worry too much about understanding how the arrows fit together in this context, because that's not super important for what we're doing right now. But I'm going to shut up and give you 5 minutes to just review that. And if you have questions while you're reviewing it, just go ahead and post them on the board where the question emerges, or off in space if it's a general question, and then we'll go through and get those. So these are clarifying questions. Just what does this mean? What is that? Could that? Just places where it's confusing, and then we'll take it to the next step. Denise, since you don't have a video, are you able to see the board? Or is that just not going to be a super relevant piece of your?
Hey, Christine, I'll be able to see the board in like 5 minutes because I'm just on my phone, but I'm going to try to get on it now.
Okay. Okay. Just let me know if you need anything.
Okay.
And I'll just say a little bit about this. I know I'm talking while you're trying to read. The idea from that I had come up with was, I had realized that we've done a couple sessions looking at the roles question and the new view, and try to do some sense making from that. And I realized we're sort of doing sense making in a vacuum, because we didn't have a picture of what is, and we didn't have a picture of what the desired state was. And so I'm trying to like ground us in some more context of a semi-vision of a desired state, and then we'll look at what is, and then we'll look at how we could get from what is to what could be. So that's why I'm sharing this particular view at the moment. And when you feel, we're going to come back to this. I mean, we're going to look at this in several layers. When you feel like you've looked at it enough for now and you're ready to move on, if you would raise your hand. So as soon as most of us have our hands raised, we'll go to the next step. Raise your hand, your icon hand in the Zoom interface, not your bodily hand. Bless you, Brian.
I forgot how to raise hand.
Okay, I'll count you as raised. And then Melissa and Joe, Joe, you just raised your hand. Okay. Melissa,
Reactions at the bottom there.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks, Jim. So I'm not seeing a lot of clarifying, I mean, I'm not seeing any clarifying question posts on the board. Is there any verbal, like something that anyone's holding on to that they wish I would say or address before we move to the next one? And feel free to put your hands down.
I'm new to these conversations, so I'm just sort of listening and I'm reading the chart and I'm like, I'm not sure what this looks like in actual use. So that's why I'm not adding clarifying questions, because I have about 100.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. And so I think the thing to take away from this for you, Jerry, is obvious, you know, some of your questions I'm sure will be you know, get clearer. And the ones that you're still, and the thing to take away just from this practice is that in the context of, I mean, this is just, what I'm trying to do now is for us who have been involved and who have, you know, wants and expectations and needs from this network, for us to sort of look at one, you know, simple draft ideal version, and for us to look at the gaps between our ideal version and what really is on the ground. And so so the idea is, how would you do this in your context? You know, less about understanding it in a deep way in our context, but more just about the idea of what do we want to be and what are we now, and what's the gap, and how could we use a map to help us bridge that gap is the basic. So does that help? Okay. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks for bringing that up. Does anybody else have anything they want to throw out before we move to the next step? And Seth and Jim, you both have your hands still raised, and I don't know if you just didn't lower them yet, or if you have a comment you want to make. Okay. So then the next agenda was, okay, so was clarifying questions. And then, so the next question is, where on this diagram do you currently see the most activity going on? So for those of you who've been hanging out and who feel familiar, and even if you don't feel like you're the most knowledgeable, if you have any perspective on this, then that's a valid perspective because that's what you see. If you would just put a Post-it by the things you think are going and kind of going as expected, and you know, there's energy there and those things are happening. And if one person puts a Post-it on something, don't feel like you all have to. You could just like thumbs up it, or we don't need all of us doing a separate Post-it on each thing. And I think that Post-its will end up needing to be kind of small, so they're actually kind of close to the actual item that we're talking about. But I hope that makes sense what I'm asking you to do.
Could you say that again?
Small Post-its.
Mm-hmm.
One, you know, basically we could just get away with one small Post-it near, or maybe we should, near everything that you see on this diagram that you feel like, yep, I see that happening, that's going on. It might not be perfect, but it's it's in place. So it's
Okay.
our current reality.
How do you thumbs up a Post-it?
You that's what I just realized I wasn't super clear on. Let's do this. When there's we'll start practicing voting on the Post-its in a minute. So I'll once we have a Post-it on everything we think is going on, I'll turn on voting, and then everything that you say, yep, I agree with that, I agree with that, you can vote on. How's that sound? That will be a way we can see the volume of agreement. And as last time, if you would put your icon hand up when you feel complete, so I know it's time to, when it's time to move on. And Jerry, just for your, this is me figuring it out as I go. Like, I don't, I've never tried this before. I just sort of have some ideas and I think, well, what if we approached it this way? And then I see failure, I see shortcomings in the last effort, and then I think about it some more, and then I go, well, what if we try it that way? So, as I'm sitting here watching, I'm noting, okay, like just noting the gaps in my own thinking or in the process, and so I don't expect anybody to think this is perfect or to not have ideas about how it could be better. So just that's normal. I'm going to go shut a blind because the sun is starting to bounce off my desk. Which also means that if you're a person who sits through these sessions and thinks, she could have done this better, she could have done that better, this could have been done better, that tells me that maybe you could be experimenting with me and we could be doing this together. Because if you can see ways it could be better, I would love your insights. So that's also a bit of an invitation to anybody who's critiquing wisely. Wisely critiquing. I don't mean being snarky. I just mean, you know what I mean. I'm assuming some of you are still working on this, or your hands would be up. Okay, don't feel you need to do check boxes. If you're just catching up on check boxes, we're going to do a voting step in just a moment. So this first step is simply to get our initial post-its in the places where we're seeing there's stuff going on. And then I'm going to turn on voting. So the check boxes will be voted, will be a voting process in just a moment, which I just made up as we're going along. So. Okay, Mary and Melissa, are you good if I move forward?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna turn on voting, which I'm gonna give us 3 minutes. And the sticky notes that have been applied so far are the items that you can vote on. And I'm not going to make a limit to votes. So hang on, there's 15 sticky notes available to vote on. So I'm going to just give everybody 1 vote per sticky note. So if you feel like this is a sticky note by something is like, yep, I agree, I see that happening. We're not talking about evaluating it at the moment. If it's terrible, but you see it's happening, well, that's good enough. It's happening. We'll get to room for improvement once we get some of these other gaps filled, but or they will be filled by the other gaps. Okay, so just I'm going to turn it on, and it should say to you should get a pop-up saying you can vote or let me vote, and then it'll give you a little thing that I can't remember what it looks like, but I'm gonna go ahead and start it. And yeah, you'll see little plus signs by everything you feel like, yep, that's going on. So no more adding of post-its is necessary. Just click the plus signs where you agree. And then at your upper right, there's a little thing that will say I'm done, I think, for each of you. Let me know if you have questions.
What are we supposed to be voting on?
The Post-its.
Oh, whether they're,
If someone put a Post-it on a thing that you say, yes, I agree, I see that happening,
oh, okay.
just click the plus sign that's attached to the Post-it or that's hovering over the Post-it. And if someone is saying, I think this is happening, but you're like, I'm not seeing it, then don't vote on it.
Wait, you get 15 votes?
And
Is
there are
that what you're
15
saying?
Post-its. So it's really, it's every Post-it you can vote on if you can agree with. Did that make sense?
Some of these are hard to vote on. It's hard to get them to turn blue so you can vote on it. Don't quite get it.
Is there a plus sign that you see?
Yeah, but it's gray and then it finally,
Oh,
Yeah,
it's
I get the same thing. I cannot vote on anything.
if you wiggle your cursor around it, it'll
Oh, it
eventually
does
go
like this.
blue.
Okay, let's try that.
It's weird.
Oh, yeah. Woof.
Oof.
Okay. Here's the
Christine, Integrity Keepers has 2 Post-its on it.
I see that. I just
Okay.
noticed that.
So I'll just do it twice then, I guess.
It's
Yeah.
fine.
Okay. Yeah.
It's always going to be a sort of a, never going to be it's always going to be rough.
I didn't even know Miro could do this. It's really cool.
Good. I'm glad you're getting something.
Yeah. No, it's great.
I mean, that's part of my, oops, it stopped.
Oh yeah, and I didn't get to, oops, I was talking too much. Well,
I'm sorry.
no, it's not you, it's me chatting.
No, it's okay. I mean, that's part of what I'm like, part of it is just me sort of sticking my, just saying, okay, I've never done this. I think we'd all like to know this exists. So let's just
Yeah.
practice it together, like just see that, and then you'll go look at it yourself. I'm going to share my screen now so we can see what the biggest ones were,
Okay.
because I'm not sure if it shows you the voting results. So voting is up here if you have your own Miro and you want to play with it. And so we voted, and now I'm going to show you the results and of voting 2, because that's this one. And so we see that the monthly sessions are happening. I think that's pretty, those are well established, have been going on for a long time, pretty obvious. Most of you are aware that we have this way of capturing. So for those of you who aren't though, we have a community portal that hasn't really been formally launched. But it is a place where people can share their ideas for changes we should make to the map, new questions we should add, things we should do in the community, different like things that would be community building and culture building. So we do have a place to gather those ideas because they come up all the time. And I'll show you that in a couple minutes. But so I'm glad that most of you see that that's going on. Seems like most of you know that the Integrity Keepers exist. So yay, Jim and Melissa. And community, yeah, that we're capturing it. So what I'm seeing here is we've got our monthly sessions, which are pretty obvious, and most people know that we've started to capture ideas and that we have this concept called Integrity Keepers, which is a small group whose job is to help make sure that things that we initiate outside of map changes, that they're in integrity with the overall vision of the community and the needs of basically main support system, that they're in alignment. So any questions about this before I go to the next step?
I just, do people glean from this diagram that there's these activities on the left that we do stuff, and then people come up with ideas about changing the map and also about changing the community, and they get the ideas to put them in that harvest basket, and then they're both handled in those two tracks separately. The upper track being changes to the map, and there's a process around that, and the bottom is changes to the community, and there's a process around that. And then those changes get embedded in the community touch points again, the places where we get together.
Jim,
I just-
that was not clear to me at all. And I'm hoping you could elaborate on that. And in the harvest, stuff is harvested from all of these activities?
Well, so we have a process for doing that. We have not, so I just want to say, so the biggest, so we have these various, and I think this is a fairly common thing in lots of networks. And so I feel like it's worthwhile for us to be very transparent and for me to be very open and vulnerable about where these things are. We have a lot of great ideas. We have created some processes to start to act upon those ideas, but how all of it fits together, the causal loops, the this, then that, the who makes sure that this is in alignment, the how to move forward. We have been, I mean, that has sort of been the foundation we have been trying to build of how to make a process that can both liberate the energy and the inspiration that people have around this community while maintaining the right kinds of guardrails to keep the community culture the way we want it to be, and to keep the focus in a generative place rather than just dispersing all the energy and floating off into outer space together or separately. So this is not real yet. Parts of it have some foundations in place. It has not been getting promoted yet because it's not super refined. We haven't figured out all the steps. You know, a big thing is I don't want to open up hypothetical floodgates that just end up coming back to me all the time so that I'm having to engage with every single thing. So it's being put in place, but it's not there yet. And so I think that part of my hope for today is that we can identify some ways of getting more people involved in actually implementing these processes and continuing to refine the pieces that don't exist yet. So Jim, I maybe just segued totally away from what you were saying. I'm sort of responding to what Seth's question.
No, I was just reflecting that when I look at that diagram, and I look at that diagram all the time, it's a lot of information. And I think it would have helped to have done an overview and saying ideas are generated. Some of them apply to the map and some apply to community building. We build processes to work both. So
Okay.
I was then checking for understanding there. So
Okay.
No.
That's another example of me jumping in without enough.
But a real quick side thing on, no, you completely then explained it again, but just a very quick side note. You said, if you had ideas about this, that, and the other, that's a signal to collaborate with you on working those ideas. And I was thinking that would have been an opportunity for me to collaborate with you before this so that I could give that perspective of like, wow, people won't necessarily know that. And yet I didn't have time or offer that. So I'm thinking about what are the barriers for that. And,
Yeah.
you know, anyway.
Yeah. I mean, that's part of what you're touching on is part of the challenge of this whole thing is that you didn't have time or offer it. I didn't ask for it. you know, I have this, you know, machine that I'm always, that's driving me all the time. And I'm just like, oh God, no, I got to prepare for that. Oh God, no. And I don't have time to say, oh, will you talk this through with me? And it comes to me in little bits and pieces. Like Friday, I didn't know what I was going to do. Saturday, I sort of went, okay, yeah, I can do this. Sunday, we had to go spend more time at Marion's and she died. So, you know, we got home late last night. I got up this morning and sort of tried to tweak it a little more. So, you know, it's like, how do we make a process where other people can help with that machine, or like, so that it's intentional and more of us are involved. And that's part of, so you're pointing at part of the like those well, I'm talking about like the causal loop diagrams and the interstices of how it all fits together. I still don't get. I see all the pieces that we need in place, but I don't get how to make them fit. So that's part of the need to think about self-organizing in roles here. So thanks for the input and questions, all of you. So then the next piece is a little bit different, and I'm going to actually remove the Post-its. I'm going to hang on a second. How am I going to do that? I'm going to group them, but take them off the diagram, move them up so they'll still be able to be put back on. But oops. Oh, hang on. Yeah, there we go. So that we can start afresh. And if you would start putting Post-its, and we'll use the same process. So just put a Post-it in, you know, right next to the things that you feel like are the most important gaps, like places where it's not happening and you think this would be a high leverage thing. If we could just get this one thing started, that would be important. Or it's something that seems to you like a low hanging fruit kind of a thing. Like we could do this really quickly and easily. It wouldn't be a big lift. So if you would put a Post-it in one each, and then we'll vote on them again. So don't feel like you have to, someone's already put a Post-it on something. Put Post-its in the places that you think are gaps that could or should be focused on in the near term. And if you would make the Post-its like down to the size, not a big box, but down to the size of, and Seth, you just selected the whole thing, and so no one can put anything on it for the moment. I can see there. Great, perfect. Like make them small enough to actually go to the small bullets or to the really the so that we're looking at actual potential activities as opposed to categories of activities. That would be great and helpful.
We're putting stickies there, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Love seeing the cursors flying around like butterflies.
Hmm. Yeah. And again, if you would put your hands up when you feel like you're complete. Oh, and I'm stop sharing my screen, sorry. Okay. Denise, are you good if I go ahead and start voting? Oops, so I'm gonna do that. Okay. So we now have 17 sticky notes. And I think in this instance, I'm not gonna give us 17 votes because what I'd like is for us to find, well, no, I'll just give us 17 votes because we still you can give us 15 votes. And then I'm gonna give us 3 minutes. I'm gonna give us 4 minutes because the last time we stopped a little bit early. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and start voting. Does anybody have any questions before I start voting? Joe, are you laughing at me? That's fine. You can be.
No, Jim is moving the post. So I'm
Oh.
just waiting for it to settle because if you start the voting, then it's gonna matter differently. So I'm like,
Got it.
okay, Jim,
I just
lift your
kept
fingers up. Like, stop
I
playing.
realized I wasn't
Hands up.
done.
Hands up, Mira, before the voting begins.
Okay, are you done, Jim?
Yeah, she wasn't supposed to see that.
Oh, revealing, things being revealed. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and start. So again, we're voting on what is important and you think would be big leverage for moving things forward, and or things that would be easy, low hanging fruit, like why haven't we done this by now? It's simple. It's not going to take a ton of work to get started.
Is anybody else having problem with the grayed out besides us? Not.
I am.
And-
They're all grayed out until someone has voted for them.
And you need to just increase
No.
the size,
Zoom
and then
in.
yeah.
it's easy to hit them.
Oh, yeah.
Just
Thank
zoom
you.
in. Yeah.
Oh, it's not
Easier.
You don't want us to vote for the same thing twice, do you, Christine?
Oh, you can if you need to.
9 votes left.
Well,
Jim, you have 15 votes. What are you gonna do with that?
Yeah, well, I just want to know the rules.
yeah, I actually could have put down, I think you can, it's closed at the moment and I can't open it, but I think you can tell it to only allow a person 1 vote for one thing. So I could have constrained that if I wanted. I didn't.
Do you want us to raise our hands when we're done?
Yes, that would be great. Thank you. So lovely. Being able to know, like often when we leave space, I don't know if everybody's sitting there bored already or if people are frantically trying to catch up. And so I don't know if I should move us forward. So the hands are very helpful. I appreciate that. And I don't, Denise, I don't know if you've gotten pulled away by something else.
Oh, I'm here.
Okay. Because I moved forward last time without seeing your hand and I didn't know. If
Oh, I forgot to put my hand up, and I think as we were talking and then the voting went out, and that's why. Sorry, I'll try to be
No, it's
with my hand.
my talking does not help, I know.
No, I was talking to you now.
Okay. Are you done, Denise? No, or not? Because I was talking to you. Denise, I'm gonna go ahead and move us forward. Is that okay? Oh, you know what? There's an I'm done thing in the thing too.
Mhm.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of going by, so I didn't realize that we were going past it. I thought
so
we had
much quicker than me. Okay, I got it now. Okay. So there's multiple ways of indicating that. I'm ending the session. Just so if you're ever doing this, you see where I got tripped up and you
there.
prepare for that time in your own context. So it's doing this little gear crunching thing, preparing the results. It's a little machine image. Okay, so can you guys, I'm showing the results now on I can see them on my screen. Can you see them on yours?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, then I don't need to share my screen. All right. So I realized as I was voting that we still weren't super broken down, but it looks like connecting conversations, shared learning, micro collaborations got a lot of votes. The harvest basket got a lot of votes. And the community building and supporting ideas got a lot of votes. And so I'm going to ask you to think about this a little more as we go to the next step, which is it's hard to tell, like, is community building and supporting ideas, does that mean that you think we should have more of them? Does that mean that you think we should be doing more of them? And if you think we should be doing more of them, like if we break it down to an actual possible small thing that could be implemented in the near term, what would that be? So in other words, community building and supporting ideas is a huge concept. And that's sort of the challenge in our weaving our networks overall is who's going to initiate that? What are the conditions that need to be in place for that to happen? What are the barriers that are stopping it from happening, et cetera? So, so let's think about that as we go to the next step, because what we're trying to do is break, in self-organizing, if we think of an ecosystem and a squirrel does its little part and a tadpole does its little part, and some parts are teeny and tiny, but they can't happen unless other things are already in place. So first we, get the soil nourished, and then we put the start, there's this sort of sequencing of what needs to be in place to enable other things to happen. And I think what we're ultimately looking for is getting to the point where we've got the conditions in place that people who have 5 minutes a month but still want to do something, we know what that is, they know they can do it. We've got a process for them stepping in, and maybe there's 50 people who want to do something 5 minutes a month, and that could be have a huge impact. But where do we start with that? How do we make that possible? Or maybe it's not the 5 minutes a month, it's some other kind of, but how do we break it down to make it possible for people to engage the way they want to at the scale that they want to, and still feel like there's benefit to everyone and they're making a difference and it's not a burden. I don't have to spend 2 hours getting me, like one person doesn't have to spend an hour getting one person up to speed so that they can do something 5 minutes a month. That's not a really good balance of effort. So, so those are the questions that that I'm always thinking about, and that I'm hoping for us to think about together. And so I want to go now to the view. Wait, let me just check my agenda thing. Okay, so we did the gaps. So looking at the things that got the most votes on gaps, now I'm going to leave those on for the moment. And I'm going to do one thing. Jim, can you unselect the whole frame that's over the, thank you. I'm going to actually make this frame a little bit tinted so that the Post-its stick out more. Okay. Okay, so let's go to open that link to our map, it's an embed link to the informal roles view. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, we recently added a question to our social system map, which had to do with what informal roles do people want to play in this context. So not understanding what form, what their role is in their work or their role is in other contexts, but because what we want to contribute and what role we want to play is contextual. Jerry, you don't want to do in my community what you do in your community. It would kill you. And I don't want to do in your community what I do in my community. So we asked this question relative to our specific community. We made a view around it, and I'm going to now share my screen and walk you through that view just quickly. So for those of you who aren't used to navigating in these kinds of maps, these are the responses that we've gotten. And I apologize, there are people who are showing up in this view who didn't actually, sorry. Can you see my screen? Yes. Okay. There are people who haven't answered the question yet. So, but they're still showing in this view because I asked him to add strength of connection, like to be able to, anyway, something got pooched up and he did that on Saturday. And obviously he didn't fix it yesterday and I didn't discover till this morning. So there are some random people who didn't answer that, but the blue rectangles represent the roles. We went through a process, Mary and Jim and I, and some got a lot of input from other people, but we went through a process of defining what those, we think in this context, those roles, what would be meaningful roles to people, for people to play in our community. So this is defined by us. We took some other frameworks as starting points and then we tweaked it based on our specific needs. And so the rectangles are roles. And you can click on a role and you can focus on that role and then just see the people who said, yep, they're interested in that role. You could look at it from that perspective. You can also, well, let's do this again. Let's go back to a role. I'm going to focus on that role. And then we've got 4 people I see in that role. And then we could say, who's super invested or who's super invested in social system mapping? Maybe this is broken. Maybe there's nobody there. Hang on, I'm going to refresh the view. But the point is we have these other dimensions that we've also asked questions on at some point in the past. And we can, so filter to see a little bit more about, once we've selected a group around a role, we can see what other interests those people have. We can just select roles this way too. We could say who wants to be a culture cultivator, a welcomer, a connector, and then we'd have these 3 nodes and we could start filtering from there. The other way we can handle this view is to add, and this is going to make things visually much more messy. So and I'm going to talk to Tim about if we can make this less messy, but he just threw this in again on Friday and we haven't had time to play with it since. But if you want to see who's already, who's in a role and then who's already collaborating, now we can start to see all these red lines are collaborators. So what I want to give you is 10 minutes to dig into the views in the map and think about, as you're digging into the views in the map, the roles that are most, I'm going to stop sharing. The roles that we need to do those high level to, like what kind of roles would be best suited to address the gaps that we've identified. So what kind of roles do we need? Who are the people who are involved, who identify with those roles? Another piece of this ought to be, how do your own interests intersect with the gaps, the roles, and the people in the roles? So for instance, is there somebody you'd really love to work more with who has a specific role, or has said they're interested in a specific role, and there's a way that you could be complementary and in doing a micro collaboration or co-creating something together? So how do the gaps, the roles, and the people relate to your own needs and interests? And then what could you do to help catalyze solutions to the gaps that we've identified based on what you're seeing on the map? So thinking about all those 4 questions, and there's a place in the board for putting your responses to that. So feel free to just sort of, if you want to put them in as you're going, go back and forth between the board and the map, or we'll spend some time after you've looked at the map inputting those. But
Can you
Mhm.
put the link in the
Oh, I'm
chat
sorry.
again?
Apologies.
about the
It's at
map?
the top. It's at the top of the blue box, but let me also put it into the and it will just open up directly on the
Oh, I see.
embed on that view.
Christine, for some reason, I wasn't able to see the results. Could you just go over the gaps?
The gaps we saw were, hang on a second. I've turned them on. Can you see them on your?
Okay, I'll look.
I'll leave them on for a bit.
Christine, I'm having trouble with the map. If I click on a single role, I get about 10 roles. And I don't know if other people are, or whether,
Oh, you mean a single role on the like
under the informal role drop down.
Oh, really? The blue informal role drop down, or the,
Yeah,
pardon me? Yeah,
the informal,
there's 2. One's pink and one is blue.
I must be looking at a wrong map. So
Do you want to share your screen?
I'm gonna start over here, and I'm gonna use. So the links at the top are allowing me to use my own link or to opt in, correct?
No. Oh, okay. I see. No, I put those are for updating the map. If you want to update the map, if you haven't done that for a while, or if you want to put yourself on the map. But at the top of the blue, inside the blue rectangle
over here. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
there's a. I mean, it's the same map. So, but I don't want you to have to jump through all those hoops. Is it getting
All
clearer?
right, let me just see very quickly. No, yeah, if I just click on culture cultivator, I get 10 clusters.
In the pink version of culture, the pink drop down,
Pink.
or the pink one, use the blue one.
I'm not sure what the pink or the blue one is.
Um,
I'm just in the upper left corner of the canvas under the informal roles drop down.
Can you show me your screen?
Yeah.
Sorry. This is making. Go higher. Okay, wait, start over. I didn't see where you started from.
I'm starting right here.
Okay.
Okay,
Uh-huh.
so we're good there?
Yep. Okay, that's the pink one.
So where do you want me to go? Oh, up here.
Yeah.
I see. Much nicer. Okay. All right, thank you.
The pink ones are showing not it's not selecting the node itself, it's selecting all the humans who selected that node. So the pink ones are filtering the people's responses, and the blue one is selecting the actual nodes of the roles. So that's why there's a difference there. You good?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Christine, I think I left Miro, and when I came back, I'm unable to see the results on the gaps still.
Well, I'll share my screen.
Okay.
Just a little concerned I'm distracting everyone.
Yeah, sorry.
No, I'm gonna. Okay, can you see it, Mary?
Yeah.
Okay, so basically this box,
Mm-hmm.
the harvest space got 6.
Mm-hmm.
The community building and supporting ideas got 7. This connecting and sharing, I can't see, connecting co-collaborations, shared learning, micro collaborations, that got 6. So did that help?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, I'll stop sharing. Do that.
And how do we add ourselves to the map, or is that something we shouldn't bother with now?
No, certainly you can bother with. I would like that. If you go to the upper part of the Miro board, there's a yellow box. And do you see the yellow box up there? In Miro? Then there's 2 links. Depends on, you're on the map, so use the one that says use this link to get your own link. It's in the middle. Yeah, you're on it. Is that clear? Doesn't look like it was, but you're muted and you're distracting. And Jerry, I think you're on our map, but I'm certain you haven't updated it. I believe you haven't updated it recently with those roles, which is fine.
I think you're right, and I should go do an update.
No shoulds. We'd love that if you do.
Oughts, mights.
I would like to. I believe I don't know.
Wills.
Melissa, we don't have a shared understanding about what those roles do, and we didn't define the term somewhere. So that's a thing that we could do. Someone could do. I mean, when we were doing this question, it came up in my mind, at least, of yeah, that would be great. But as you know, I have not taken the time to do that, and have not asked anybody else to take the time to do that, because the couple people I asked to do things, are already doing so many things.
I just think it would really help me to understand that, and I'm happy to do it, but I wasn't part of the conversations where folks.
If you would like to take that on, you could absolutely do it and get input and feedback from other people, so that you don't have to feel like you're being the boss of defining our reality, but it would be very helpful.
If I shared my understanding of what I think.
Yeah, that would be helpful too.
Cool.
Yeah.
Of you know, what I take away from those terms.
That would be great. Thank you.
where would we make that visible?
That Melissa just agreed to do the definitions.
No, if Melissa shared her understandings of those roles and we had commentary about it or wherever, where would be a good place to put
Where
that?
would that be a good place to be, Jim? Would it be in Miro or?
I would say we can put it in some app as a link around near the roles, and we can also put it in Coda somewhere. And we have lots of places to put it once it's been defined. And Melissa, we can touch base on a process for sharing and getting input. Or you and Jim can.
Or Mary, because I know Mary's going to have a lot to say about this. Invested so much energy in the roles.
Yep. Bye, Jerry. Well,
Thank you.
thanks for showing up. It was fun to have you here.
Same here. Thanks.
Okay, take care. I'm going to give us just a couple more minutes, knowing that you probably won't feel complete, or that this isn't maybe enough time, but there's some reflecting I'd like us to do at the end and some other things to share. So a couple more minutes. Okay, I'm gonna have a stop there. Thanks for updating your profile, Joe. And for those of you who don't see her additions, a thing to note is when somebody updates, the map has to be your browser has to be refreshed for the data to come through. So I can see that Jim was updating his browser periodically, which is like cool that he knew to do that. And Joe, thanks for updating. And I want to do 5 minutes. So I'm going to ask us to each, I want to make sure that in 5 minutes, everybody can comment and, but let's not have a discussion. I just want to sort of hear what's coming up and let's, you know, try to make it to the point and not have back and forth so that we can hear from everybody. But 5 minutes on, just if you reflect on what we just did, does this feel like it's moving in a direction that could be generative in a context? If, you know, like, is this, there's this totally just like how you would improve on what we just did and what's coming up for you, like what you're feeling like, if there's any ahas about mapping in general, or how we could make more use of sense making to actually get more self-organizing, create the conditions for more self-organizing. So I just want to, again, hear from each one of you briefly in 5 minutes, if that's possible. That has anything to say. You don't have to all, just popcorn style. Joe, go ahead.
One of the things that I was thinking about is, like, as part of this session, if we could have generated a list of activities that could have done, and then a sign up sheet kind of activities, like, you know, let's do this and who wants to sign up for this, and just knowing that there are some activities that we can do right away would have helped me to sign up for an activity.
Got it. Thanks.
And it could have been a brainstormed session. It doesn't have to be a premeditated list, but like in the moment we could have generated a list and then committed to it.
Thanks. Denise. Thanks, Joe.
I I enjoyed the process. I think what it felt like, kind of thinking along Joe's lines, is that rather than, it seemed like a big ask, but a very thoughtful, collaborative way to come to the ask, which is the final point. How can you help use your skill sets to identify the areas that the community might need help in? And so what I liked is we're thinking about collectively what was working well, collectively what needed assistance, and we voted on it. So it wasn't one person saying, oh, we need help in point A, B, C, D, E right now. It was us collectively looking at that. And then I enjoyed the fact that we go back to using the map. So I'm learning how to use that a map to suggest people who, if we were playing that role, like Sarah Shanahan always talks about, like this amazing kind of CPM, like a CRM system where we could then identify people we would go and contact. Like, I'm thinking about how I would use this, people that I would contact, even if I don't know them, based on their profile. And then, okay, you've identified the problem, how can you help? So I kind of enjoyed the overall, I found it an interesting way to get support for building the mapping.
Great, thank you, thanks. Asnet.
Yeah, I have several thoughts, and no, I have not updated my profile yet. But I want to echo what Melissa said in the chat, is that we need some kind of a minimum specs of what help looks like to fit, as you said before, to fit the willingness and ableness of people. But in general, the whole, okay, I'm just going to use initiative, looks like a puzzle without, a jigsaw puzzle without borders. So we don't know exactly where the borders are, so it's more difficult to identify what is needed, where I think help is needed and where help is actually needed. So as I'm saying it, the most urgent thing is to have a help conductor.
Can you say more about that?
Yeah, a help conductor will say help is needed here, and this is the type of help that is needed. as opposed to leaving it to the discretion of each person and goodwill.
That's helpful. Thanks. Anyone else?
I found, I thought I was prepared for the session, but found Miro it's still a barrier for me. And what I saw as a gap turned out not to be sort of high on the list. So I don't know. Clearly I need to learn more about Miro or use it more. But I'm just sort of wondering about what other kinds of ways of working with this we could do, using another tool or just some pre-work and then being able to work actively in person together.
We have time for one more. Jim?
I could hold off if someone else wants to jump in.
Anyone else who hasn't gone? Seth?
I too had some difficulty with Miro, having never used it before. But I guess I had not had the opportunity to look at the Miro before logging in this today, and so there was a lot to absorb in a short period of time. I have some ideas, but it's going to take me a little time to articulate them, and I don't really know how to submit them or where to submit them. So it would be helpful to know that, so that if I do take the time to kind of think something through in a way that I feel is ready to share, then I know who to share it with.
Jim, do you want to?
I could be real quick. Yeah, I liked the collective process. I wish we had all understood the map better, but I think out of it came places where we felt there were gaps, and I thought that worked really well as a collective process. Then I personally had a difficulty then going to the map and saying, what informal roles would support those gaps? And I was trying different combinations of informal roles, but it would be interesting to have a conversation about that. But so then I picked a few of the informal roles that I thought would help with a particular gap. And then of course I saw the cluster of people that were in that area. And then it made me think like, okay, it would be interesting to reach out to some of these people I haven't seen or talked to, and they identify as having interested in this role. And it would be interesting to reach out to them and say, so, if we were thinking about this space, what do you think?
Thanks. So I do want to show you, Seth, how to do the ideas thing. So I want to start sharing that more consistently and regularly. So some of my sort of like what's coming up for me in listening to the comments is thanks, Denise, for the affirmation that the direction, like the overall conceptual direction, fit and made sense. And I think we can all sort of take that away. And then, but clearly context and people's comfort with different tools and how much time you have is all gonna have a big impact on how you implement this. In our context, we have people that come and go and that are at different levels of familiarity. And so I sort of have, when it's a larger group, I don't expect everybody to follow everything. I don't think that's possible. I don't feel like everybody's going to be able to engage fully, because it would take us 5 hours and not everybody shows up for, just because of the attention span of the audience that I'm working with or the groups that I'm working with and how we have to fit it together. It's always going to feel this way. And I just have come to say, yep, it's going to always feel this way. very, very partial and very piecemeal. And I'm not going to try to fix it because that wouldn't make any sense. But I think that you each, the comments that each of you had about the challenges are really valuable for in other contexts for you to pay attention to and think about. Is my audience ready to deal in Miro? Do we need 3 hours? Is this a very consistent small group where it makes sense for us to actually do this kind of in-depth process? Or is that, you know, too much process for the kind of group we have? It is way too much process for the kind of group we have, except that this is the process that is our learning content. And so that's why I do it. But if it weren't social system mapping, but all the other dynamics were the same, I wouldn't expect this kind of in-depth co-creation or co-thinking of everything, because it's just it's too much for what we've got going on. So that's another thing that you know, those tensions between what fits in my context and what's necessary, and the overall sort of conceptual experiment that I'm sort of roughly throwing out as a splat of a draft for us to take and learn from. And to the degree that it turns into something that you would like to offer in this community, that's fabulous. But all of those things are also really important and valid, like more time to absorb the map, etc. I'm going to share my screen, and because I'm noticing we have 5 minutes, and I didn't have this shared because I didn't want to get us going down this rabbit hole yet, but I wanted to save this for the end. Seth, this is for, did Seth go away? I'm not seeing Seth all of a sudden. Does anybody see Seth? He disappeared.
No, he's there.
Oh, okay, my screen share.
You're on mute, Seth.
Oh, there he is. Okay, sorry, I was concerned.
Yeah.
So Seth, we have 2 forms. They go into this platform called Coda, which has not been getting promoted yet, but we're working. I'm trying to get to the point where it feels ready enough. Never will be perfect, but ready enough. But there's two ways of approaching an idea. One is this just something I think should happen? I'm not ready to do it. I'm not saying I want to be part of it. I just think it's a good idea, and I want you guys to know that I had this good idea, and it's going to sit in our idea basket. And that means some, you know, when people dig through the idea basket, somebody might say, oh, I love that idea. I think I want to take it and run with it. I might, you know, maybe Seth puts the idea in the basket. I see it 5 months later. I think, I wonder what Seth was thinking. I might reach out and say, Seth, what were you, can you give me, just flesh that out a little bit more? And then I might say, yeah, I want to implement that idea. I want to take that and run with it. But these ideas they're no more commitment than an idea. And maybe I'll talk to somebody if they reach out to me at some day in the future, and maybe I'll say, no, I don't want to. There's no more commitment than that, but it is a good idea. So we have a process for gathering those, and that's the top one where it says click here to share an idea about the map of the community. It asks some specific questions. It could be an idea about questions to add to the map, and it could be an idea about cultural or community building changes to our community. Either one, fill out as much of it as you can. You have to put on, like, I think your name and a title, but there are questions that if you don't have an answer, don't worry about it. There are 2 questions that are actually, you do have to answer, which ask you how committed you are to it. And one of the options is, I'm not going to do this at all. I just wanted to share it. And then there's a range of, like, I would like to host a dialogue about this potential question, or I would like to make sure that this whole thing happens. So there's a range of commitment that you can give to the idea. And you do have to answer that. And you have to answer it both about if it's a community idea or a survey idea, because they have a different process. So that's one thing. You can throw all your ideas in right away before you even have thought through how interested am I in actually doing it. And we're developing a process around moving those forward. And that's a separate thing I'm not going to talk about right now. The other form is a brief. And a brief is I want to do this. I want to make this happen. I want to take this and run with it. And there are questions in the brief form about what is the tension or the potential that you're trying to address? What is your hypothesis for how to fix it? How do you intend to go about dealing with it? And the point of a brief is to make small experiments that we can run through quickly. So it's a low hanging, it's not a huge thing. It's a doable, near term, small thing that we can test together, evaluate, reflect on. So it's an adaptive action cycle. And we do a brief form so that the integrity keepers, which currently includes Jim and Melissa and I, can just have a look at it and make sure that it's in alignment with the overall intentions of the culture and the, and the purpose of the community. So we're just sort of making sure that there's integrity around what happens in the briefs. So if you do that, then the integrity keepers will take a look at it, reach out to you, and sort of partner, not exactly partner, but be a liaison with you for helping you move that brief forward. So these are processes. We're still sort of working out, how should this work? How do we do this in a way that is liberating? And so for instance, if you have an idea and you can't stand forms, or you don't like the technology piece of it, you could have somebody help you. You could reach out to us. One of us might be a thought partner for you before it gets turned into a form. So we're not saying you can only do any of these things if you're willing to fill in a form. That's not it. But we are trying to have a place to capture ideas and then think about what's needed. So for instance, if you've got a brief, and I know I'm getting to 11:30, but if you've got an idea and it actually requires, a whole lot of heavy lifting from 10 other people in order to implement it, then you need to get permission from all those other people to make that requirement on them, or, like that needs to be part of the discussion. So that's what to do with the ideas at a high level. And since it's still sort of in progress, it hasn't been formally announced yet, but this is what's there, what's coming. And
it's a perfect answer to my question.
Great. I'm going to stop sharing. But if you're the kind of person who actually has thoughts about this process and would like to support, here's the thing that I'm starting to say to the community. If you've got ideas, put them in a form. If you have ways that you want to help make the implementation of the ideas better, I'm just realizing I was going to say I want to hear from you, and then I realized, like Jim, you brought this up earlier, like I don't have time for everything. And so like, what's the tension between giving feedback into the process? Oh, Jim and Melissa, yes, if you have ideas about the process of briefs that you would like to give feedback on, you could reach out to Jim and Melissa. Maybe, I don't know. They haven't said that that's an option, but see, this is part of what we're figuring out. Like if I start announcing things and we haven't got a process in place for what to do with the announcements, it ends up back in my lap, which is why I don't announce things so fast. So, okay, that was a lot of yammering. Hope that was helpful. I will look for people to remind me to share this stuff, and like I need memory triggers as well for stuff, and it's over time. And so let's do our goodbye ritual of us. If Jim, you've got look on your face, and I'm wondering if you need to say one last thing.
No, it's my face.
Okay. Okay. Thank you all so much for your time. This was, I feel like this was helpful for me. I appreciate it a lot. I was quite anxious about doing it as usual. So, so thank you for joining us. So goodbye ritual, 3, 2, 1.
See you all.
So
Have a great
much.
day.
Bye
Have a great week
Great
ahead.
afternoon. Love you all. Bye.
bye. Bye.